Every season of Australian Survivor is a story. There are main characters, sidekicks, comic reliefs, and villains. A good season of Australian Survivor tells a compelling story. It will grip you and have you rooting for someone and against someone else. You will want to tune in episode after episode to see what happens next until it all finishes with a hopefully satisfying conclusion. Each story that we look at together will go through one character's journey from beginning to end. From the time that they are introduced until they inevitably get their torch snuffed or win the game, we will look at every character moment and strategic move to determine whether they were a hero or a villain and whether they were a good or bad strategist. And with that, welcome to Once Upon an Island. For reference, we will only be observing what the TV show is showing us and what story is being told through the show. No future seasons will be mentioned, as the story and characters here have no idea and therefore are unaffected by those future seasons. However, American seasons of Survivor may be referenced as a comparison point. All character moments and strategic moves are interpreted with the mindset of what the story is trying to tell us. And with that, I want to thank you all for supporting this channel. Subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing are crucial to this channel's growth and making all of this possible. If you want to do more to help keep the channel from going down under, then consider supporting this channel on Patreon. You get every video weeks early. You can also vote for which survivors I tell the stories of, and even get an exclusive Patreon only video each month. Thank you for your support.
55 days, 24 contestants, 1 survivor.
Nick Iadanza, a 28-year-old high school teacher, was a castaway on Australian Survivor's first season. By the time he finished in the game, he was an all-star, guaranteed to return at some point in the future, despite playing on the very first season of the show. So what is it about his story that made such an impact and had him destined to return to play again? Let's find out. For those of you only familiar with American Survivor, Australian Survivor has some little differences that you need to be aware of. This season has 24 contestants in comparison to American Survivor, which is more often than not 20 contestants. This season has 55 days to play in comparison to America's 39, and the episodes here range in time from 45 minutes up to an hour and 15 minutes. So this show truly gives you more, and sometimes even more than you ask for. Everything else though, in terms of how the game is played, is the same. There are hidden immunity idols, reward, and immunity challenges, camp life, a tribal council in pretty much every episode, and lots of social gameplay. This season is the first in a reboot for the series that is still going strong to this day and takes place after the first 32 seasons of US Survivor have already aired. So let's get down under to Australian Survivor. The show begins by introducing us to some of the players as they travel through the night all the way to what seems to be the morning, so for quite a long while, until they arrive to their tribe's mats in Samoa. Jonathan, the show's host, asks Nick why he thinks he can win, to which Nick replies,
Why do you think you can win?
Because I've been talking the talk that I could do something like this, and it's time to walk the walk.
Wow.
Everyone is then split up into tribes of 8. Red is Aganoa, blue is Sinapu, and yellow is Vavau. Nick is on the Vavau tribe, and after the tribes do their initial marooning where they get supplies and Sinapu wins fire, Vavau arrives at their beach for the first time, which has Nick being a happy camper.
As we were walking into tribal camp, the first thing that went through my head was, get these bananas off my shoulder. But after that, as soon as I saw the flag, nothing mattered.
Right away, it is easy to tell that Nick is a fan of American Survivor. It is clear through the first episode that a few other people are as well, but Nick seems to be the only one on the Vavau tribe that is obvious to us as an audience. After arriving and being a happy camper, he knows that fire is everything in this game and that they will need it quickly in order to be happy. Apparently though, he is already keenly aware that no one else on his tribe knows what to do yet, and he calls them a bunch of dodos.
If we get that fire going, then we can go off and do everything else. However, when there's 7 dodos just kind of like roaming around.
This makes him the leader from the outset, since he seems to be the only one who knows what to do, and he says this is a position he didn't want to be in, and he's kind of put himself into it.
You have to do something to try to corral them, and that's where I'm falling into that role I did not want to be, which is a leader.
In Survivor, if you come out and lead the tribe, you're the first one to get shot.
However, while leading, the tribe is getting to know each other, and they seem to like that he is a high school teacher.
So what grades do you teach?
I teach year 8 to 12 English.
Oh, nice.
really?
Yeah, so
That's cool.
all the kids.
Nick then tells us that Survivor for him is his magnum opus game. He has always wanted to play, and when he was selected to play, he has been training non-stop to get ready.
I've been going to the gym twice a day. I have been setting up challenges in my backyard with my seesaws and obstacle courses and puzzles.
Despite all of Vavow's efforts, they can't get any fire made, so instead they decide to do something a bit more relaxing.
Do you know what's not hard? Let's go in the water, because that's easy and that's the Vavow way.
Later on, they have their shelter made, and it is now time to enjoy the luxuries that come with that, like finally being able to rest.
Go.
Oh my god, it's actually really comfortable.
The shelter breaks on them, but they seem to be having a good time together, which is far more important. Vavow ends up winning immunity, so they are safe in this premiere, and no strategic decisions have yet to be made by them. So far in this premiere, we met Nick, who seems to have a happy-go-lucky attitude, is book smart about the show, and eager to be there. However, it seems like his eagerness and excitement has caused him to slip up by putting himself in a leadership role early on and calling his tribe a bunch of dodos, which is reminiscent of Rob Cesternino in The Amazon. Either way, he seems to be a central figure so far, so following his journey should be an interesting one. It is episode 2, and Vavow still doesn't have fire, but they have flint. They won it when they won immunity. Nick gets to work on making one, and it seems like it may be a success. But instead it goes out, and this is a devastating blow to Vavow. However, Nick says that is Survivor for you. You get punched in the gut, but you still have to get right back up and keep on fighting.
You think you know you've got fire, and just as it's all about to catch, it disappears in front of you. She will punch you down, and she certainly has been pummeling us for the first few days.
So after that, he gets right back up and attempts to make fire one more time, and this time...
Yeah, baby, she's burning now.
Once we got fire and once we got the food in our bellies, like the vibe just lifted, everyone felt normal again, and we just knew we were in the game again next challenge.
Vavow once again wins immunity, so we move on to episode 3, where a familiar dilemma comes up for those who have seen Survivor Worlds Apart. It is a conundrum where 2 survivors from each tribe have to decide whether to be honest with the rest of their tribe and bring them back a larger bag of beans, or be dishonest and get a smaller bag of beans, but they get a clue to the hidden immunity idol for themselves. Nick and Tegan are the ones for Vavow who are faced with this problem, and almost immediately Nick says, let's be dishonest. Once again, that eagerness is really coming into play here.
So what if we take this,
Yeah.
say that there was a clue to the hidden immunity idol, but we tell everyone the wrong clue? Is that bad?
Well,
If you heard that idea and thought to yourself, you know what, that's not a bad idea, that might work. Well,
So what we've done is, we've got the idol clue, and we're going to share it with everyone. How does everyone feel about that? Yes?
dig in the ground
Dig in the ground
near a throne.
near a throne for a king, an idol will be found, and immunity it will bring.
as you may have guessed, that poor delivery and unconvincing tone makes everyone immediately know that they're being lied to, which is just a terrible move for both of their games, for both Nick and Tegan.
My BS radar went bing, 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 bing.
Looks like it's a treasure hunt, people.
A king's throne. Just didn't make sense.
He even knows almost immediately that no one trusts him, and he continues to bury himself even deeper by trying to sell them all that, hey, this is the real clue, guys, let's go look. But not a single person buys it.
So could king mean something else, like king prawn or king like chess piece or... And immediately my radar went off. holy crap, they don't believe me.
None of this is good for his game, people's trust in him, or having anyone be associated with him, as we see pretty much everyone hate that Nick lied to them so blatantly. Tegan, on the other hand, is basically getting off scot-free for this, even though she was a part of it. Nick decides that he needs to come clean to someone to try and save face, so he decides that he wants to tell Sue and Craig the real clue since he feels close to them and says he promised to remain true to them. It doesn't work out, and he never gets the chance to tell them.
Baby's been playing the game since the thing.
Yeah, for sure. That whole thing was a wild goose chase. I'd watch him like a hawk, him and Teagues.
It is time for the immunity challenge, which is a bunch of physical stuff that ultimately doesn't matter, as the puzzle at the end is the great equalizer. Nick is Vavow's puzzle guy, so at the immunity challenge, when everything all comes down to the puzzle,
Last piece, and Vidal wins immunity!
he is safe for one more episode. We move on to episode 4, where Nick is actually able to tell a few people about the real clue for the idol, but once again, he really botches this, and he would have been better off probably saying nothing at all.
Because I want to tell you the real deal about the idol, because that was not the real deal. It's about high and low tide and under a web.
Because Nick didn't remember the idol clue.
Sue then asks if Tegan knows the clue, and Nick immediately takes this chance to throw her under the bus, which is just a bad look for him.
You know, we're in this together, the idol's just for you and I. Obviously, I have no allegiance to Tegan. Yeah, I wants to come back and share. I know she does. I know she does.
While he can have no allegiance to Tegan, telling half of his tribe this right after giving them what seems to be 2 fake clues now is making him seem like a very untrustworthy guy. Craig then reveals to us that Nick is a real danger to the tribe, since it seems like that since day 1, he has been making deals with everyone on the tribe.
From day 1, Nick has been making promises and deals with a lot of people on our tribe.
Nick is in hot water. He is next on the chopping block, and without a hidden immunity idol, there seems to be no foreseeable way for him to turn this sinking ship around. At the immunity challenge, everything once again comes down to the puzzle at the end, where, once again, Nick saves his own hide by winning immunity for his tribe.
Vidal wins immunity! They come all the way from the back!
We move on to episode 5, and Nick needs something big to save his game unless he plans on winning immunity until they hit the merge, which who knows when that will happen, since this season has more days and more contestants than any US Survivor season we have ever seen. So when we get a touching moment for Nick, it seems like the story is ready to send him off into the sunset as he reflects on his mom's passing away and how she gives him the strength to fight.
Now I can actually live out my dream, which is to be here playing Survivor for myself and for her memory. She was never one for a pity party, and she would always used to tell me, if you think you've worked hard, you can always work harder.
But his stock is on the up as he goes looking for the hidden immunity idol that no one else has found yet. We get an entire montage of him searching and searching until... While he doesn't find it, this all feels like the downfall of Nick is very, very real. But at least he has some information about the idol that he didn't have before.
Absolutely no success. But now I know where it's not. Is that any help? Probably not.
Vavau loses immunity, and for the first time, this tribe will have to vote someone out. And the story so far has been playing this all very straightforward as to who that will be. There hasn't even really been a second target presented. Nick is now scrambling to save himself and tells Craig that Barry is stupid because Barry just told everyone, hey, I'm not voting with any alliance, I'm voting by myself, and in fact, I don't even have a target. I'm just gonna draw a random name from a hat.
I'm not going to join alliances, and the only way that I'm deciding on tonight, I'm just going to be simply drawing a name out of a hat.
Which had everyone asking, Barry, when did you get pen and paper? No one here has that. And Barry doesn't really respond. When Craig asks for who Nick will vote for, he says, let's do Tegan.
It's Tegan. Okay. What do you think?
I'm good with that.
Which isn't a great look, as it seems like him and Tegan are close and in an alliance, but that's Nick. Andrew and Sue then both tell us that Nick is a goner. Sue says that she has been trying to separate herself from him, so she is not perceived to be with him, and Andrew says Nick dug himself this hole on day 1 when he made himself the leader at camp.
From day 1, Nick was calling the shots around camp. He was very much emerging as the leader, but he's overplaying it too much.
Jenna Luis even tells us that Nick's time is up and he needs to go.
It's time for Nick to go. He's betraying everyone, he's deceiving everyone, he's lying to everyone, and he just has no place within the Vavau tribe anymore.
It truly feels like no one is with Nick, and Nick isn't really with anyone who wants to be with him. We have heard Craig, Andrew, Jenna Louise, and Sue openly say he is done. Barry won't commit to being in an alliance, and when the tribe is only 8 people, that only leaves Kate and Tegan available to possibly vote with Nick. But no matter what he does, he doesn't have the numbers because he's trying to target Tegan, which makes it seem like a hopeless ray of sunshine when he talks to Kate, who is on board with voting with Nick.
Nick and I really see eye to eye. Like, he's one person I can see going all the way through, and he said that to me as well.
Sue then asks him who is he voting for, to which he says, "I will do whatever the majority wants, I do not care." She says she thought he was voting for Tegan, which he had told Craig previously he was, but is now backtracking on with Sue.
I'll do whatever the majority wants, right?
I thought you were going to go Tegan.
No.
No?
We continue this train wreck into tribal council where Sinapu is there as well. Aganoa won immunity, so the R2 tribes had to go to tribal council. And both tribes have to vote one player off of their tribe. They go and vote, and when Jonathan returns, he says to all of them,
You haven't voted to send someone home. You have voted to send someone to the other tribe.
Which is the twist Nick needed to stay in this game. If he is voted out, he's going to Sinapu and still has a shot to win this game. While receiving votes, he calls his tribe a bunch of snakes, which is going to curry him no favor if he ever tries to work with them again in the future.
Nick, 4 votes Nick, 3 votes Barry, 1 vote left.
Snakes.
He is voted out 5-3 as Barry receives the other 3 votes.
Person leaving Vavau is Nick.
Wow. That's brutal, guys.
He joins Sinapu, and Jonathan lays one more twist on them. The players who just got voted out, which is Nick from Vavau and Connor from Sinapu, now get to pick one player to come with them to the other tribe so they get to drag someone along with them. Nick picks Tegan, which is not a bad choice, but he would probably be better off by bringing no one along, as anyone coming to Sinapu could be leaking to the Sinapu tribe all of the blunders Nick has made so far at Vavau, which would inevitably only hurt his game again. But we'll see.
I'm gonna go with Teagues.
Tegan.
Episode 6 begins, and at the new Vavau camp, they tell Connor and Sam, who are the Sinapu members who were moved to Vavau, how Nick had alliances with everyone and no one could trust him, tainting 2 more people who have never even met Nick into possibly never working with him in the future and just having bad thoughts about him. Very important to remember that Connor and Sam are the ones who are tainted.
But it turns out he had alliances with everyone.
He reckons he had an alliance with me, Andy, Jen, Sue.
However, at Sinapu, he is genuinely happy to still be in the game, especially after being surprised by the votes at Tribal.
The rain came down and washed away my sins. I am a new person. I'm wearing blue, and I'm wearing blue proudly.
Something important to note here is that unlike Vavau, which still has 8 members, Sinapu only has 6, so Nick only needs 2 people with him in a voting scenario to at least make it a tie. Nick has taken the time to reevaluate what went wrong at Vavau. He realizes he came into the game playing a mile a minute like it was a modern day US Survivor season, when in reality this season is probably more akin to a classic US Survivor season that moves a lot slower in the beginning and flipping only happens on a rare occasion. He decides now is as good a time as any to adjust his gameplay accordingly. From now on, instead of playing fast and loose, he has committed himself to playing a slower game that consists of him simply being helpful and nice to everyone.
My game plan at Sinapu is that tried and true method of old school Survivor: just be helpful. Just be nice.
With this new leaf turned, Nick has turned to some other plants for inspiration, as he says that he wants to play this game so badly that he would eat a fern if it meant he got to stay and fight.
I'll do absolutely anything to stay in this game. If you told me that if I ate this fern, it would keep me in this game, I would start chowing down straight away.
Tegan then talks to Brooke about Nick, and as it turns out, he told them both the same thing when it came to forming a bond with them, which has them both realize that this guy is playing them and being very sneaky.
From the moment I saw you on the truck, it is. From the moment I saw you on the truck, I knew I wanted to like.
Oh, that's what he said to me.
Which has Brooke in confessional saying that this guy cannot be trusted. He is a snake. which is the first time anyone says this exact name for him. No one previously has called him a snake, but don't make it into a drinking game, as it will not be the last time he is called this.
My opinion about Nick is that he is a snake and he can't be trusted one bit, and I'm really glad I found that out early.
Nick then talks to Matt about how he wants to simply survive the next vote, and Matt says absolutely, he likes him and Tegan, and he really likes how hard Nick works around camp. If it were up to Matt, which he thinks it can be, then Nick won't be going home next, which excites Nick to no end.
Who's that? Flick. I guess that's good to know. Yes!
He really likes how he feels like he now has more options to him, which is great, but it doesn't make his view of Vavao any better.
Not only am I still in the game, I feel like I have some options. Definitely more options than I had with those yellow idiots back at Loveable.
Once again at the immunity challenge, Nick is placed into the hero's role at the end of the challenge where he has to make a fire that burns through the rope, and he does just that, once again winning immunity for his tribe and possibly saving his own neck. The next episode starts with Nick telling us that he has been working his tail off around camp in an attempt to make himself appear valuable to the Sanapu tribe.
One of the ways that I want to make sure I stay around this camp is by being valuable. Maybe I can do this whole fisherman thing.
However, this is immediately contrasted with us then seeing Brooke, Flick, and Tegan all say that they would vote Nick out next if given the chance, so apparently his hard work isn't influencing them very much.
Would you write his name down if we all agreed as alliance to write his name down? Would you? Yeah.
It's been good, but you can never trust Nick in this game.
Matt and Nick are then discussing Kylie and her idol. At the previous Sanapu Tribal Council, she wore it around her neck as a bluff, and it did actually work. She wasn't voted out. However, she still has possession of the idol, so Nick tells Matt how they can split the votes to get rid of Kylie's idol, or possibly her if she doesn't play it. He likes this gameplay by Nick.
Nick's in this for the long haul, and I know he's going to play this game harder than anyone out here. But I kind of like that about him.
Sanapu wins reward, and they win a feast from Hungry Jack's, which is the Australian version of Burger King, and Nick goes bananas for this, which I am sure the sponsors loved.
It was like losing your virginity, getting that job interview, being told you're on Survivor, all rolled into one little patty.
It is now time for the immunity challenge, and this time there is no puzzle at the end to solve, no fire to be made. Instead, it is all physical, and at a quick glance, Sanapu is at an extreme disadvantage as Nick is the physically strongest member on his tribe, and the other two tribes have some big guys. The tribes have to hold one of their members above the water, and only one member at a time can do this, which Nick does pretty well at. While doing so, he calls out to his mom for inner strength.
Please help me, Mom, please help me.
Nick, he struggled out of the gate, but he is still in this.
Come on, Mom.
That is the attitude.
After 25 minutes, Nick has to swap out, and the rest of his tribe does not last as long as him, as the other 4 members combined last 27 minutes in comparison to Nick's 25. They now have to go to tribal, and Nick is on the line once again. After they lose, Flick says she wants Nick out tonight. For some reason, the girls seem to think that Nick has these manipulative powers that there has yet to be any evidence to support.
I'll go Nick.
It's in our best interest to vote Nick out tonight. I don't trust him, and I don't want him in this game any longer.
He might turn us all against one another,
Exactly.
and we need to stay strong.
Flick then talks to Matt about getting Nick out, but Matt makes a great point about how big of an asset Nick is in challenges, and without him, they would have had no chance at today's immunity challenge.
I don't know, we should be getting rid of Nick. I just think he's too strong for us to lose right now.
However, Matt does agree with Flick that Nick is a snake, and even earlier in the episode, we saw him and Brooke have a similar conversation that had them both calling Nick sneaky.
He's sneaky.
I know he's going to turn on us at some point. We know Nick is a bit of a snake, and he's a strategic player, and he's going to get us at some point.
Nick then makes what is the smartest, most logical pitch to anyone who is voting, as if this is a game and not based on their emotions. He says, guys, keep me until the merge. Why not use me as a meat shield when the merge happens? Anyone left from Vavao at the merge will want to target Nick before any of the Sanapu members, which is true.
We know Vavao don't like me. right? And one of the things I feel I can offer is I'm almost like a little bit of a windscreen. They know that they have a meat shield here in me because they're going to come for me and not for them.
Something seems to work in his favor as Tribal ends up with a weird 2-2-2 tie vote. 2 votes by Nick and Tegan for Kylie, 2 votes by Kylie and Matt for Tegan, and 2 votes by Flick and Brooke for Nick. However, Kylie does play her idol, so everyone revotes between Nick and Tegan, and Nick is safe as Tegan goes home unanimously.
Tegan, the tribe has spoken.
We learn at the beginning of episode 8 that Brooke wanted Nick gone, but Matt actually put in the work to save his neck.
To be honest, I wanted Nick to go to Tribal Council tonight, but Matt actually changed everyone's mind last minute.
Sinapu wins the reward challenge and another twist occurs.
But first, you need to know that we are merging.
Now, Jonathan calls this a merge, but all they're actually doing is just switching up tribes. They're eliminating Aganoa, so they're going from 3 tribes to 2. Sinapu gets to have their pick of the litter as to who joins them, and everyone else left becomes the new Vavau tribe. Sinapu is stacked, and they even draft Jenna Louise, so they have an easy target just in case they do go to Tribal Council. Back at camp, Nick has a discussion with Jenna Louise about what happened at Sinapu, but it all goes south pretty quickly as Nick takes things too personally.
That you were lying to us and
How?
again
Tell
about
me.
the immunity clue.
You were so hell-bent that I was lying to you that you weren't willing to open the dialogue.
The way
I'm in an
Joanne's
alliance.
sitting duck.
I'm in an alliance, Jen. We work together. That's what an alliance does. Maybe you should look it
Don't
up.
patronize.
Well,
However, Nick finally catches a break as Sinapu goes on a hot streak of winning challenges. Reward in episode 9, immunity in episode 9, and then the immunity challenge in episode 10, which is once again due to Nick coming in clutch with the puzzle.
Sinapu wins! Sending Vavau back to Tribal Council again.
Vavau is now falling apart, one castaway after another. Sinapu being able to pick their own tribe mates really has the tribes completely imbalanced at challenges, and it shows. Things are going so well that the biggest issue the Sinapu tribe is having is whether they should kill and eat the chickens or not. Matt is leading the charge as he says he would rather set them free than eat them, and Nick can't believe his ears.
2 days ago, Matt told me that at one point he had 62 kilos of chicken nuggets in his freezer and nowhere to store them. Oh guys, we can't kill those chickens because that's just bad.
Then somehow, one after another, people decide that not eating the chickens is the best idea, when originally it was only Matt saying that. Nick then paints us a picture of how Matt flips everyone to not eating them, even when they had previously been on board with doing so in the past. But what this really shows Nick is how easily Matt is able to sway a group of people to do something that they didn't really want to do to begin with, and it is a great observation by Nick.
He was able to convince wishy-washy upside down Sam, and then that got Lee, who the day before, Lee volunteered to help kill them. I viewed Matt as a threat because he was able to sway the majority to do a really, really dumb thing. And that is really scary.
Later on in the episode, it happens. They set the chickens free, and Nick can't believe it. What happens when they start losing rewards or the merge hits and only a few people get to have a reward? It all seems like madness to him, and he is right. Right now, they're only halfway through the season.
Why would you let that much food go? When those rewards start drying up, what are we gonna eat?
For now, his fears are not really an issue as Sinapu wins immunity in episode 11, immunity in episode 12, episode 13 begins, and Vavau has lost 5 players since Nick was voted out of the tribe, and he is personally loving their downfall. He even expresses this publicly at the reward challenge.
No. Craig voted out in the last Tribal Council.
Wow.
Which, by the way, Nick comes in clutch and helps Sinapu win once again by not only getting the winning point, but getting 2 out of the 5 points that they needed.
But Nick is back to his mat first. Does he have it? And yes, he does. That's another point for Sinapu.
Life is good at Sinapu. Nick is staying under the radar for the most part, and the focus of the story has not really been on him since episode 8, and for him, no news is good news. Once again, he is put into the hero role for his tribe at the immunity challenge, and once again, he comes in clutch, winning immunity again. Another twist is introduced to the game. Brooke from Sinapu was sent to attend the Vavau Tribal Council. However, she doesn't just attend the tribal, she gets to bring someone from Vavau to Sinapu. She chooses Sue, another person that backstabbed Nick, which leads us to episode 14, where Nick opens old wounds and has a conversation with Sue about this, but for some baffling reason, instead of doing this in a one-on-one private setting, he chooses to have it in front of all of Sinapu. And not only was this conversation just unnecessary to begin with, unlike the Jenna Louise convo, this one paints him in a bad light in front of everyone.
Because you lied to me. And it wasn't just one lie, it was quite a few lies.
I kept my end of the bargain. You didn't.
But I didn't trust you in the end.
After winning immunity and reward once again, Sinapu is relaxing and enjoying life. Nick is still not over his revenge plan for Sue, as she is now his target number one. It all feels a bit too personal, like the Jenna conversation for Nick, who is a super fan of Survivor and really should know better.
Watching Sue in the water, just thinking enjoy it for now, because I want to get rid of Sue as soon as possible.
Episode 15 brings us the Survivor auction, and also something a little bit special.
You gonna start doing it?
Do it to us.
Say it, say it, say it.
As individuals.
We are now merged and Nick has to fight for his life now, which is not great for him. He has had it easy with Sinapu for quite a while, though to be fair, he is a large reason as to why they're winning so many immunity challenges, coming in clutch time after time after time. But the merge is a joyous time and no one is happier about this than Nick.
There are moments that I've been dreaming about my entire life. Get to play Survivor and to make the Survivor merge.
At the auction, Nick comes so close to buying multiple different food items until he finally caves in and actually wins a covered item, which turns out to be...
You have won an advantage.
It is a clue to the hidden immunity idol, and immediately he knows, I'm screwed, but it can be argued that at this point, he is a goner either way, so his options are to either open it and use it, or immediately upon arriving back at camp, burn it in the fire in front of everyone without opening it so he can attempt to build some trust. He decides to...
I believe this is happening again. Oh, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. What are you doing, Nick? Once the genie is out of the bottle, you can't put it back.
That's right, he opens it and goes searching for the idol. And while looking for the idol... he ends up finding it with Lee right there, so now everyone will know Nick possesses the idol. Information is power, and this is not information you want everyone to know typically, but having the idol is not a bad thing for someone who is in hot water like Nick. Oh my god! Now Nick doesn't win individual immunity, but thankfully for him, it seems like he may not be the primary target for everyone. Instead, that seems to be Connor, who was voted out of Sinapu back in episode 5 and was the player Nick traded places with way back when. Nick proposes, let's do a split vote on Connor and Kate with his alliance, and they seemingly agree.
Yep. Do you think that works?
Let's do that. Connor and Kate.
Okay.
Let's get back.
All right, okay.
We then hear Matt say he trusts Nick to a point, but Lee and Sam say they do not trust Nick at all and they want him gone as soon as possible.
He's scared to talk to me because he knows I don't trust him.
I don't either. Guys like Sammy and Lee, they want Nick gone as soon as they can get him gone.
Sam then says that everyone knows that Nick is a snake in this game.
Everyone's aware they don't trust him and he's a snake in this game, and we all know that.
Thankfully for Nick, the split vote plan works and he has no need to play his idol as Connor goes home in a 6-4 to 1-1 vote, which is similar to what was seen in the Survivor Borneo merge, and not really since then.
Connor, the tribe has spoken.
We start episode 16 and Nick is already at the top of many players' minds, which is not great. Kate says that she doesn't think Nick actually cares about anyone and that he is willing to throw anyone under the bus to win.
If he doesn't know what's coming, like, you know, if he thinks it's me, like, he doesn't care. He'll throw anyone under the bus.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Which is a fair point to say and is a hole in his social game, as we have seen time and time again how willing he is to flip on anyone, even those he has aligned with in the past like Kate. In some seasons of Survivor this would be good, but this cast is playing a much more classic game, and of course you don't want anyone to think that you'll flip on them. That's part of having a good social game. Sam, Lee, and Kate then convince Sue and Christy to help put votes on Nick to flush out his idol, and everyone is seemingly on board with this plan.
Sammy and Lee are telling me to vote for Nick.
I don't really know Nick, so he hasn't impacted me.
At Tribal Council, Nick claims that he has told one lie all game. Otherwise, he has remained true. Sam calls him out on this and says out loud to Nick about how, hey, Nick, you're a snake. While Sam is right that Nick has told more lies, it is telling that he thinks everyone else is trying to play a quote-unquote moral game, but they're just as big hypocrites as Nick, and he calls them out on this, which is not a good move when trying to curry favor, even if you are correct.
We all know Nick's a bit of a snake. There's no doubt about that. We're trying our best to keep an honest integrity group.
A lot of people talk about loyalty and integrity, trust, and then do the opposite.
Nick makes a good call and plays his idol, which negates 4 votes against him.
This is a hidden immunity idol. Any votes cast against Nick will not count. The person with the next highest number of votes will be voted out. First vote, Nick. Does not count. Nick. Does not count. Nick. Does not count. Nick. Does not count.
While on paper this is the wrong decision, I believe it is always a smart decision by the player to play the idol whenever they feel like they might go home. It's better to be safe than sorry. Plus now everyone knows he no longer has an idol because it was public knowledge he had one before. Kate ends up going home with 6 votes.
Kate, the tribe has spoken.
What is strange is why Lee voted for Kate when earlier in the episode he had agreed to vote for Nick. Had he stayed true to his word, he would have voted for Nick and there would have been a 5-5 tie between Nick and Kate, had everything of course gone to plan. Either way, Nick is safe for now. We begin episode 17 with the audience being a bit blindsided. Since Nick arrived at Snapu, we've been hearing him called many times about how he's a snake, more so than I've shown, namely Brooke and Sam. However, it isn't until the previous tribal council that Nick became aware that anyone was calling him this. So it was news to him and he doesn't like it. He breaks down and cries because he never wanted that label attached to him for simply playing a game, and Elle does her best to console him and make him feel better.
And I know it's trouble, it's just a game, but I feel like there were personal attacks in there.
There was, yeah.
However, he then tells us that once again he wants revenge on those calling him a snake. This seems to be his go-to plan whenever he feels personally slighted, just take revenge on everyone.
Since the moment I left Tribal, I have already come up with about 15 different ways that I could get revenge.
However, Nick breaks down in confessional because no matter what he does, he feels like he can't do the right thing. He's constantly making bad moves and is just being misconstrued.
A lot of people see me as this scheming person who will do anything and throw anyone under the bus, and I just want my family just for a minute.
It is time for reward and everyone is split up into 2 teams. Nick brings back that clutch gene he has and once again he pulls out the win for his team. And his entire team wins letters from home, and he has a very touching moment when reading his out loud.
I can't wait to pick your brain and hold your hand. There's a plate of chicken schnitzels.
He then says he doesn't want to utilize the letter from home for strategic purposes. However, he is aware that having everyone read their letters out loud is a strategic move in and of itself, so through osmosis, it's a strategic move. He just never intended it to be one.
But I know that moment there will have some bearing on the way Sam and Lee think.
Nick then takes the time to talk one-on-one with Lee to find out the root of the frustration he has. And by the end, Lee apologizes to Nick and all seems well.
Well, he deserved to have his say, and I was disappointed with myself, and so I'm shitty, and that's why I wanted to apologize.
Nick then talks to Sam, who has been the most vocal about his distaste for Nick, and as it turns out, Sam has been basing all of his vitriol and anger for Nick based on secondhand stories and hearsay, which lines up with what we had thought we'd seen on the show, but we weren't sure, like, did something happen off camera? But here, Sam confirms, nope, he has nothing.
I'm just going based on the situations and the stories that I've heard, and none of them has been against me.
Sam truly knew nothing about Nick until he arrived at Vow in episode 6, and everyone just ragged on Nick in front of him about how much they disliked him. However, this perception of Nick, true or not, is the reality for many players in the game, and that perception is something you have to do your best to take control of and keep your finger on the pulse of.
I think it's just people going off believing what other people are saying about you, which is not a good way to live your life, I feel.
Otherwise, it can get out of hand, like it has here with Sam. overall, Sam does not apologize, and nothing has changed for him when it comes to Nick despite this conversation.
It's just the stories that I hear around and everyone telling their side of the story. There has to be a reason, I guess, why everyone was saying this.
This is proven later on when Nick doesn't win immunity and everyone is primed to vote out Nick, who Sam once again calls a snake.
Last tribal council, I like to say it was phase 1 of removing the snake from this game. You know, we're on to phase 2 tonight, tribal council.
Nick then makes a last-ditch effort to save himself and have everyone vote out Sue or Christy instead, which everyone agrees immediately to, but no one will look him in the eye about, which is a classic telltale sign that they are lying.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Everyone happy?
Happy.
Yep. But I feel like that seemed a little too easy.
At Tribal, Nick says a lot of people feel safe because the alliances they assume will hold strong, but he is keenly aware that his alliance has lied to him and will be voting him out.
I think a lot of people feel safe in this game because they feel like they're insulated in their alliance. They gave promises to me, big stuff as well. I feel like tonight is going to be the night that they go back on that.
Sam then unnecessarily attacks Nick by saying there are people voted out who deserve to be there more than Nick. This feels like a personal attack, and Sam is factually wrong when he says Kate deserves to be there over Nick. Even if Nick hadn't played his idol, he would have been safe in a 6-4-2 vote. So Sam's just being a jerk here.
As far as I see it, you know, we've lost a lot of really good people in just this final merge that should still be here.
So you think he's less deserving than other people?
Yeah, 100%.
Nick knows he is a goner, so he calls out everyone with where they sit in their own alliances in the tribe's pecking orders, and based on what we have seen, he is pretty much dead on with a lot of his reads.
The Brooke, Flick, and now Elle core. And we have the Sammy and Lee core. I think Matt thinks he's more in than he actually is.
Sam then once again calls Nick a snake, unnecessarily. At this point, it just feels like bullying.
You're a snake in every aspect of the word, and I'm very, very happy that you'll be leaving the game tonight, mate.
Especially since all Nick has ever done has just talked about the game and what people are doing in the game and how they're playing games, but he never talks about people personally like Sam is doing. Nick is then voted out in an 8-3 vote with only Lee and Matt voting with him for Sue.
14th person voted out from Australian Survivor, and the first member of our jury, Nick. That's enough votes.
However, he is clearly still having fun and is not at all bitter when he finally gets his torch snuffed by Jonathan.
Oh, I'm geeking out so hard right now. Do it.
Nick.
Do it.
The tribe has spoken.
Awesome.
So let's break this down. How is Nick Iadanza as a character? While he was labeled as a snake by many, he was a lovable, rootable underdog despite his mistakes. His joy for the game, love for his deceased mom, and his hunger to play made it all the easier to enjoy the journey with him. He would occasionally make the mean comment about the Loveable tribe, but funnily enough, he outlasted all of the men, and most of that tribe who voted him out. However, if someone ever did him wrong in any way, Nick was not someone who was quick to forgive, and he wanted revenge on anyone who backstabbed him, which led to some uncomfortable conversations with Jenna Louise and Sue. Despite that, he was one of the major figureheads of this inaugural Australian Survivor season, all the way until he was finally voted out. He dominated the confessionals. It was clearly being shown to us how much we should root for Nick despite all of his mistakes, and it made following his story all the much sweeter as it had a fall, a rise, and a story-ending twist. Out of 50 character moments shown on the show, 31 were heroic and 19 were villainous, making Nick Iadanza a hero on Australian Survivor. So how was Nick Iadanza as a strategist? He started off the game very poorly. He made a long slew of bad moves that haunted him all game, and as a result, he could never truly recover. He played the game like it was a sprint and not the 55-day marathon that it is. His abundance of alliances he tried forming at the beginning bit him in the butt and got him voted out of Loveable at the first tribal he went to. Thankfully, to a twist, he was simply voted to Sinapu, where things got exponentially better. He ended up outlasting all of the Loveable men to make it furthest in the game out of all of them. However, it took him being voted out of Loveable to course correct and slow down. He was playing a lot like Tony Vlachos in Game Changers when he needed to play like Tony Vlachos in Winners at War, though to be fair, neither of these seasons had aired yet. The perception of him outgrew who he actually was to the point that people's constant talking behind his back about how he's a snake outweighed anything he could do to make himself not appear as one. By the end, he was making much better moves and reads on what was going on, but he had socially dug himself far too deep. Either way, his super fandom shined through and made him someone who would be fun to see play a second time if he could fine-tune his game and do even better. Out of 53 strategic moments shown on the show, 24 were smart and 29 were dumb, making Nick Iadanza a dumb strategist on Australian Survivor. Thanks for watching, and if you like the content you see here and you want to see more Australian Survivor stories, then please support me in this channel on Patreon. Your financial support makes all of this possible, so thank you, and thank you for watching.